And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the African American Athlete. I'm Rickey Hampton, along with my friend and frat brother, Michael Roberson, coming to you on a Wednesday evening. Mike, we got all kind of stuff going
Yeah,
on, man. The first full evening of NBA basketball, the debut of Wemby for the San Antonio Spurs, and we're gonna get into some NBA, some NFL, some college. We're gonna get into a lot of stuff, but I think it's only right, Mike, that we start this show off with the news that Dusty Baker uh, is retiring from Major League Baseball as a manager after a long career as player and manager. Dusty's hanging it up. His Astros got eliminated last night. And as Dusty said today, baseball has been my life. 26 years as a manager, several different teams, a lot of teams you close to, so you know closely, and 19 years as a player.
yeah,
Uh, and Mike, and I always cheer for Dusty. Uh, I just always liked the way he handled himself. His players always loved him, and I hate to see him go, man.
yeah. Well, for me, I was looking at it like last year. Sometimes you stay on too long. I said that would have been a great swan song. Get that finally get that monkey off your back, the chip off your shoulder, whatever. When they won last year, because he's been through a lot. He's been through a lot of disappointment. I mean, people want to say, "Oh, well, he burns out his pictures." All kind of negativity, but every team he goes to is better. I mean,
Yep,
Houston was a disaster. I
yep,
mean, nobody wanted to go near them. They still get teased about cheating, and he resurrected that whole situation. And people forget they were in the World Series the year before last. They just
yeah.
happened to lose to the Braves, I believe, and then win it all
There with
last year.
Verlander. Speaking of the
It,
Astros,
it,
last
it was a situation where you say, would he have been better off if he would have just said, you know what, I finally got over this mountaintop. Let's end it now. Let me end it on a good note. Because even though it wasn't horrible how it ended, but come on, you lost every single game in Houston in the series. And I was kind of mad at the players because I'm like, where's your home pride? So they lost that series by winning all three games in Arlington, but losing all four games in Houston. So
Yeah.
that's going out on a bad note. The whole Bartman thing in Chicago, that was horrible. And then the monkey, the rally monkey, when he was with the Giants, when they lost to the Angels. So he's had a lot of despair and disappointment. But overall, like you said, you got a championship as a player, got a championship as a coach, and you've played next to the great Hank Aaron. So he can't really say baseball owes him anything. You know how people will say this doesn't owe me anything. So yeah, he's had a great baseball life, and you can't. He didn't get the dignity of going out as a winner, but it still was a year later. He still was a
Oh
great,
yeah.
great
A-
manager and player and person. And I actually
exactly. He took on a lot of social issues.
exactly
He was not afraid to speak out about issues going on in
right.
society. Just love to do. And Mike, not only that, you lose probably the 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 greatest black voice baseball has today in Dusty Baker,
That's true. And you
because
know
he
what?
knows the history. He's
Yep.
part of the history, and he knows the game today.
And the thing about it is that I'm so glad. Even though I said he should have probably been done after he won the World Series, the bright point is when I'm coming back, I had a chance to meet him again. I've met him before when he was a Giants manager, but since he's become a champion and got that whole thing rectified, I had a chance. They played the A's, which may not be an option too much longer, where they played the A's here in Oakland, and I had a chance to talk to him then. And you know, I'm glad I did, because who knows if I'll ever see him again, especially if he's not managing. So I'm very glad. And I'm always like that. I didn't really have the opportunity because I was finishing my story, but I said, you know what? Let me get downstairs and talk to Dusty. You never know. This is the last time I'll be able to talk to him.
Yeah.
So I always jump on those opportunities, especially when it's something more relevant than just the day-to-day game. So I wanted to make sure I went down there and talked with him, and you know, got something on tape and all that. But yeah, he was a very I guess you could say a Renaissance man as a player, as a manager, and as a, like you said, as a socially aware guy and all that. And who do we have left? I mean, I do like our guy in LA that I had a chance to talk to, the manager. So, you know, and they went out, you know, kind of unexpectedly. So, but other than that, yeah, he may be the last of the, I don't want to use this whole scenario, but the last of the Mohicans. But yeah, he, you know, this may be the end of a great era.
He is the last of that generation,
exactly,
where black ball players were prominent role in baseball, where you had Mays and Aaron, and you know, the days of Reggie Jackson and Bob Gibson, that whole era. He was a baby coming up through that time. So he's walking here, 74 years old. I mean, that, hey, and he said I still have a lot to offer. Baseball has been my life. I have a lifetime of knowledge, much more than those who have never played the game. He's taking a little shot at the media because, like you said, man, he always being criticized for his managerial skills. But Mike, he's forgotten more than a lot of these guys would ever learn about the game of baseball.
I absolutely agree. And like I said, he's one of the greatest managers I've ever, you know, come in contact with. And I'm glad, absolutely appreciative that I had a chance to, you know, intertwine with him a couple times and also mingle.
And everywhere he went, his teams made the playoffs.
Exactly. They always get better. I mean, especially the scenario when he was somewhat run out of here after that World Series fiasco. And the next year, the Cubs are ready to go to the World Series until, you know, and I don't want to blame Bart, man, because that's the weak way out. But that did change everything. But it was just weird circumstances that changed that, because right after that play, the shortstop made a horrible error, and everything just fell apart. And another thing that people forget, the great late Bernie Mac did what's always a great thing at Wrigley Field is the seventh inning stretch where they take me out to the ball game. And he did that, and he said champions. And right after that, they just went. So, you know, and it wasn't his fault, but it was just so many weird circumstances.
You know what? I never knew that.
Yeah. He did it. And it's like, if you grow up in that area, that's an absolute honor to do that, because it was all.
I knew that. I never knew Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie did it. Yep. And he said champion.
Hey, Mike, I would be afraid to let Bernie on the mic at a public event like that. You never know what Bernie might say.
Well, especially when you get guys that are from the South Side. They usually hated the Cubs. I know Mike Wilbon couldn't stand the Cubs. He's a White Sox guy. So to get guys from the South Side that were just into the Cubs that year, I mean, and luckily it did happen years later in 2016. They finally got the Billy Goat off their back. And so, and that's what it was, probably the curse of the Billy Goat, because, you know, it would have been just so amazing. I mean, he did win in Houston, and that's a great thing. But to win in Wrigley Field, a black manager, that would have been, and even in San Francisco the year before, because people forget, the Giants had won World Series titles, but in New York. That would have been the first one in San Francisco. So, ironically, the guy he just lost to, Bochy, is the one that did win. He won in 3. So I've had people out here say, well, between Bochy and Dusty, I like both of them, but I'm going to have to go for Bochy because they kind of ran him out. And I said, you forgot what they did to Dusty? So, oh, yeah, you're right. I said, see, so what's your first thought? Your first thought is to go for Bochy. Right. Is there a reason for that? So there's a lot of that I see, just living out here, that a lot of people didn't appreciate Dusty like they should have. And there were some that gave him love last year, but they're rooting for Bochy this year.
Yeah, I'm looking. You got Dave Roberts in
Dave Roberts, yep,
in L.A.
Yep.
And I'm trying to do a quick search of who else is up there coaching.
And that's what I'm saying. He was another one that I made sure I made a beeline down to the locker room to talk to him. So I talked to him and Mookie Betts.
Who that a manager? I'm gonna try to look that up and get that.
Right, because another thing that Dusty would have done, he would have equaled Cito Gaston as the only ones that went back to back and have multiple World Series titles that are black. And of course, Roberts kind of goes under 2 categories. You got the Asian American community that also has him as their folk hero. So he has it. He has a dual situation that he will be getting honored for when he won. So he still is the last one that has a chance to get the multiple ones. But
I mean,
I don't know. The Dodgers, they maybe it's going to come up to be that Arizona was better than their record because they swept the Brewers, swept the Dodgers, and came back on Philly, who was looking unbeatable at home, especially. So they may be destined this year. The Snakes may be destined.
They got hot.
Yep.
Hey, Roberts, last season for sure, Roberts and Dusty were the only 2 black managers. And I'm pretty sure there was no new additions this year. So, right. I mean, that shows you the state of baseball. Exactly. And it's we have stopped playing the game. We've talked about this many times. We've stopped playing the games, and man, I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. And the brothers we see are going to be from the Dominican Republic and the South America, the Caribbean nations.
Yep. Well, and here's the irony of it: the 2 managers, Dusty and Bochy, San Francisco just did a new hire, but it wasn't a new hire. It was Bob Melvin, who used to be the manager of the A's. So a lot of people here are excited. So I'm glad to see him back and all that. But what are we doing again?
Yeah,
I mean, you couldn't find any young guys that could kind of come up and change the whole appearance and maybe the whole flow of the Giants. Find some young guy, find somebody that could do that. But that's the way they want to go, and we'll see if it does work out. But
yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna still have this same scenario, year after year, and then it's of course, attrition is gonna take over because Dave Roberts is not gonna be coaching forever,
right?
Especially if they keep coming up short like that. I'm sure they might say, "Hey, look here, Dave. If we have another situation where we're swept, right away in the playoffs, even though they had to bye, so it was the second round, but it was their first time on the field, and they just got swept. It was embarrassing, but Arizona, like I said, those rattlesnakes, they got going, and it may just be their year.
Yeah. So, hey, props to Dusty. I hope, I don't know what he wants to do, but I'm sure somebody would offer him a job as an analyst. He would be great. It's smart, insightful. But hey, thank you, Dusty Baker. And
absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
Best of luck to you, man. Hey, Mike, we got the NBA. I mean, this is a great time of year. If you're a sports fan, you got your pick between baseball, football, basketball, the
Soccer.
WNBA just finished up. Soccer.
Soccer. Yep.
You got
Hockey.
everything going on right now,
Yep.
and NBA the full schedule is kind of in the works tonight. The Lakers and Nuggets tipped off last night, but man, it is really going to be
Wait,
an
wait.
interesting.
We can't leave out the team out here, the Warriors, and then I got to kind of interject something else. So yeah, the second game was the Warriors. You know,
Yeah,
with Chris
yeah,
Paul. Yeah,
right.
because everybody's like,
I
what's
fell
Chris Paul?
asleep on that one, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of ended in an exciting way. It was Phoenix against them. Of course, Phoenix is overblown again because of Durant and Booker. And
They did not win that game last night.
yeah, they end up winning. Yes. Well, the Warriors looked kind of bad at first, and then they made a comeback, but the shooting wasn't that great. Steph didn't shoot that well. And, of course, they had no Draymond either. So that's a kind of integral part of that team. But, yeah, Booker, I guess, ended up somewhat running the point and getting assists at the end, and they end up winning, down the stretch. But before the game, I got to acknowledge my cousin, Lila Owens, who's the owner of Cupcaking. And it's a cupcake shop. She has several around the Bay Area, but she has one over at the Chase Center. That's why I'm bringing it up now, because it's associated with that. And she's really cool with Steph and Aisha. And Aisha, of course, is doing her cooking, even though Boston fans say she can't cook. But yeah, she's cool with Steph. She made a cake for Steph and all that. But she had her shop is right there in the Thrive area. That's how these arenas have these little areas where everybody So right there in the Thrive area, the shop is there. So a lot of people were went there on the way to the game, and being that it was opening night.
Is she shipping? Can you order?
Yeah, you could order and everything. Yeah,
okay,
and matter of fact, my frat brothers loved it. I brought a couple of them to one of our get-togethers.
Wait a minute, what frat you in, man?
And the greatest only. So nice they named it twice.
Okay, all right. Well, you said my frat brothers. I thought.
Well, I meant the local ones.
Hey, Mike, what? I'm going to type this in. Aisha, how does she spell that?
No. Aisha's Steph's wife. It's Lila.
I'm sorry. The cupcake company is called what?
Cupcaking. Yeah, Cupcaking. So CUP. Yeah. Cake Ken. So IN. No G.
Gotcha. Cupcaking.
Yeah. And like I said, she got locations in Oakland, Berkeley, and a couple other areas around here in the Bay. But the prominent one dealing with sports-wise is right there in the Chase Center. So a lot of my reporter friends, I gave them the word that, because I don't do too many games over there because they give us a hard time. So
you would definitely give us a shout out on this show, though.
Oh yeah, well definitely.
I'll get that website and we'll put that out for.
Okay. But other than that, though, so those are the two games last night, and then so some people are worried about because Clay didn't shoot that well either, so they're wondering that is this an aberration, just one game, or is it going to be a situation where they may not have the oomph to come back from the way they played last year?
I don't think they got the size. Let's start in the West and look at some of these teams, and we'll start in San Francisco because Golden State. My problem with them is they don't have enough size because you're gonna have to deal with the Joker at some point. And who's their center? Draymond, Looney, 6'8".
Pretty much Draymond, because isn't Wiseman in Detroit?
Wiseman's in Detroit, and they're playing tonight, and he hadn't got off the bench yet.
Yeah.
But Mike, do you think they can?
Oh, Looney. I'm sorry.
Looney's
6'9".
I mean,
6'9".
Do you think they're big enough? When you look at Golden State, what do you see? What do you see as their perspective?
I mean, but think about it though. The 4 championships they got, the biggest guy they had was maybe Bogut, and I think Bogut was maybe there for where he was a kind of real factor is maybe 1 year, and then of course as always, they want to discredit the one that they lost by saying that because Bogut got hurt. So
they had JaVale McGee for a couple of those too, though.
Well, yeah, but he was more of an ancillary player. He didn't really contribute that much because they also had Boogie. Yeah, Boogie for a second, and he got hurt again. So Boogie and McGee, they really weren't major factors. I think Bogut might get the most credit for being.
But they don't even have anybody like that. You're right.
Exactly.
10 minutes, 12 minutes. And,
right.
and all these guys were younger players back then too.
Right. Exactly.
So that's
Iguodala retired.
Right.
Remember how important he was.
He was right. He was their MVP.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, that losing him is a big loss. And the West is loaded though, Mike.
Well, not only that though, even though people will laugh this off and say, well, whatever, but letting the young guy go, kind of choosing Draymond over him, even though, okay, Draymond got more investment here, but to just kind of shoot Poole off like that, because especially when he was very, very important to that championship they got the year before, but then also just turn your back on him like that may come back to haunt them when they need additional scoring. Because I don't know how much you're going to get from Chris Paul. Wiggins, remember Wiggins last year was he had his home thing going on. And even before that, remember, Wiggins didn't want to get the shot. So that was another thing so there was a lot of stuff going on with Wiggins that can kind of weigh it up and down because he played really well when they won a championship. And it was really Wiggins and Poole. That's what I was saying. But then, of course, the whole scenario with him and Draymond, I guess the Warriors said, you know what? If we got to get rid of one of them, it needs to be the one that we won the most championships with. But I think that may come back to haunt them because he was basically maybe a third-level scorer. He would be that third guy. He or Wiggins would be the guy that if Steph maybe he's not hitting and Clay goes into his disappearing act every once in a while,
I agree with you.
Points.
I agree with you. And one of the main reasons, man, he's a younger guy.
Right.
I mean, Draymond, he's going to be gone in a couple of years. I mean, he may be in the league, but he's already a diminishing player. He's not the player he once was when he came in the year. But let's look at the West. I mean, it is loaded. Okay, you got Denver, Phoenix, LA Clippers,
Sacramento,
Oklahoma City, Sacramento's had a great run last year. Golden State, all these teams I think are capable of being the number one seed.
Well, but it's going to be consistency because everybody wants to put Phoenix up there because they got these three.
Right. I didn't even include Phoenix.
That's two sides. But that's two sides of the court, though. I mean, will they be able to keep up defensively? And KD's been on teams like that the last few years where, they don't get it done on the defensive end, and so it's going to just be a lot of scoring and all what ifs. I'm so tired of keep hearing about, man, if his shoe was just a little bit shorter, they'd have beat Milwaukee. And I said, yeah, you guys keep saying that, but Milwaukee gets the rebound. That shot's irrelevant. He wouldn't even have that shot. So the Bucks kind of put themselves in that position. They still were the better team.
Yeah, that's his shoes wasn't that small. But when I look at the West, LA, the Lakers, to me, look like they have the best all-around team. But the important thing about all of them is everybody going to stay healthy. I mean, are you going to have the guys when it's time to have the guys?
Well, and the biggest,
guys are going to miss games, and you got the new rule this year. You got to play at least 65 games to be considered for any kind of
awards,
postseason awards. But can you keep Anthony Davis healthy
and motivated
come playoff time? I think they got the best roster to me there, but it's a lot of dangerous teams over there.
Well, but here's a couple things I'm gonna say, and one is gonna be a shocker to you. And we had one of our comedians say the same
It's
thing. And I
gonna
was
be
like, wow, I was thinking the same thing. But
what kind of team?
no, with the Lakers. But here's the thing. So last night, of course, they played very, very limited minutes for LeBron. He still had 21, 8, pretty good stat line, pretty much his average stat line, but a little bit lower on the points. And then, of course, AD started off pretty well, 17 points in the first half, but he got settle in the second half, nothing. And that right there is one of the real threats, or maybe even a harbinger of what the season might be like, is definitely what happened in the playoffs, where he was just too inconsistent. So that's what I'm saying about staying healthy. But when you are healthy, stay motivated, mentally healthy. There's no reason for that. And then he looked like he was kind of indifferent when he's going against Joker. He blocked his shot one time, but then the next time he kind of just let him just back him down and shoot over him. Almost what happened when the series ended. That last play, I was so mad at AD. I said, dude, how did you just let him walk himself into the lane and just hit the game winner in the series clincher, and you guys got swept? And then you come back game one and you have no type of intensity to say, okay, we're going to make up for that. But that's that part.
But that's one game. It's one game, though, Mike.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. The Lakers are 0-6 the last 6 years in the opening game. And like I said, you can't go through the whole years always playing comeback. They had a horrible start last year. They had to do all that to get all that energy to come all the way back. And they made it to the Western Conference Finals, but, that caught up with them.
They're not going to go 2-10 to start the year this year.
Well, we don't know. Hopefully not, but we don't know. But here's the surprise that I was saying is that, especially when this guy right here just keeps disappearing, D'Angelo Russell. Oh, he just looked bad again. But I was saying, and I heard a couple other people said, you know what? Let's end this whole nightmare in Philly and trade D'Angelo to Philly for James Harden.
Speaking of James Harden, he's not even in Philly right now.
Well, no, they said he reported today. But he reported, but he's not there.
He's not with the team.
Yeah, he's technically with the team, so he won't get. He's almost like Marshawn. I'm just here so I won't get fined. So he did all the technicalities of reporting and all that, so they won't be taking all his money. But he's still not really there. He still wants to be gone.
I would not want him on my roster.
I mean, here's my thing. Can he be any worse than what D'Angelo's been doing, though? D'Angelo's been absolutely a disservice to that. He had one good moment.
He's going to show up for the game.
You know what?
At least, and he ain't going to come in next week. Oh, man, I want to be traded.
But you know what, though? This may be his final stance. Like, I'm home. I'm with the team that I grew up loving. I'm playing with LeBron and AD. This might be the magical moment for him.
I don't trust.
My thing is that if you want to win, I mean, just like when the Bulls got Rodman. I mean, people were saying, "Are you guys crazy? This guy almost killed Rodman." Blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Hey man, if you want to win, this is the best guy available," and that's what they did. So that's what I would say. I would say, you know what? If we want to stay stagnant and keep watching this guy be disappointing in the playoffs or even during the season, or get a guy that could actually explode. I can't see D'Angelo exploding like
that. As good as Harden's numbers are, his productivity has never really led to any kind of significant win. Now, put him with LeBron, that could be different.
Right.
Put him with LeBron may be able to keep him in line. But his style of play is so disruptive to the team concept.
Right.
I just don't know. Hey, but look, we'll get back to the NBA because we got our guest on the line here. I want to bring him in. Dr. William Head, a legendary coach, athletic administrator, coming to you from my hometown of Nashville, Tennessee. and Mike's alma mater, Tennessee State University. Brother Head, how you doing, man?
Very pleasantly. Excuse me, I had turned my headphones upside down. I thought maybe I'd get you quicker that way.
Oh, and you been in there?
And by the way, I'm a graduate of Fisk University.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Fisk Kite. Hey, man, we want to get you on to talk a little HBCU football and talk about Mike's alma mater, Tennessee State University, and their new head coach. Well, what, third-year head coach, Mike?
Yeah, I believe
Third-year head coach Eddie George, the Ohio State football legend, the Tennessee Titan football legend.
Don't forget Heisman Trophy winner. Heisman Trophy winner.
Heisman Trophy winner is now the head coach at Tennessee State University, and he's upset with the Big Blue fans, Mike. He said, y'all don't care about football there, man. Y'all don't know nothing about football. Y'all just want to come party, drink, have a good time outside the stadium. But in all seriousness, Mike and Coach, I think Eddie is misunderstood. He doesn't understand the history of Tennessee State football, in my opinion.
What?
Well,
Go ahead, Coach. I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
Given the fact that he wasn't in Nashville when the Big Blue were flying high with John Merritt and Coach Gillum and Coach Coleman, of course he wouldn't have any knowledge of the history of the football program, much less everything else that Tennessee State has accomplished athletically.
He couldn't read up on some of that, though?
What did you say?
Couldn't he read up on some of that?
What was that word you said that starts with an R?
Okay.
It's unfortunate. But Eddie's been in the Nashville community now for almost 30 years. Yeah. He's been in the community, but not of the community that he currently is engaged with. He was never one to be part of the social fabric of the Black community in Nashville when he was all-pro running back, of course, and he came from Ohio State and knew nothing about HBCU culture or HBCU color. There's no blame to be heaped upon him. It's just a fact. If you don't know anything, if I went to Ohio State right now, I would have absolutely no notion of what I was walking into. Completely blank, other than what I've seen on television. I've never read anything about them. I remember Woody Hayes way back in the Never Never. And aside from the succession of coaches that they've had and some of the follies that they provided, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, for me, of course, and I've had my interactions with him as I was in Notre Dame in the beginning of the season, so I had a chance to talk to him after the game. I also met the bus because he and the bus also interacted. For people that don't know who the bus is, a former Notre Dame star and Pittsburgh Steeler. Had one of the most memorable exits in his career where he was almost the GOAT, as in lowercase GOAT, where he fumbled, but Ben Roethlisberger helped him out accidentally by falling down and tackling the guy, and he ended up winning the Super Bowl in his hometown. That's Jerome Bettis, of course, the bus. But Eddie, it's one of those situations where, of course, he would have 70, 80,000 people at every game, no matter who they played, a regular conference game, or a big game against Notre Dame and all that. And I think, from what I heard at this last homecoming, even though it was against a black college, that there was a huge exodus out of the stadium after halftime. Of course, the two-time Grammy Award-winning Aristocrat bands performed. But yeah, so from what I understand, and that's what was the reason why he kind of made that comment. And then they said something like the attendance is like 13,000, which was unheard of. Even when our days when we played at Vanderbilt for our homecomings, we got about 40,000. So I don't know what's going on. I know some people think like, well, we're not winning, we're not that good anymore. But from what his perspective is, we got a winning record this year. So what's the problem? So I understand what he's saying, but you have to know the room. You have to feel what's the ambiance is around you before you make, bold proclamations like that. So I could get it from both sides that the alumni and fans and all that think like, okay, who is this bougie guy, Heisman Trophy winner and was a star at PWI, and all of a sudden now you're down here with the quote unquote black folks, and now you want to kind of chastise us. I'm sure that's how some people feel, but I can understand both sides. I can see what he's thinking, like, you know what, come on, guys. Where's the fan appeal? Especially when he saw what happened in Jackson State, where they were like following Deion around like the Pied Piper. So
and I think that's the problem. I think he thinks he's like Deion, but it's one Deion Sanders out there, guys, and it's only one of them. But Mike and Coach, TSU schedule this year came up, played a historic game against Notre Dame. Then they played Gardner Webb. Then they played Kennesaw State. Played Arkansas Flying Buff. Then they played UT Martin. Played Norfolk State, not a traditional rival of Tennessee State, even though they're HBCU. Then they played Lincoln. Not Lincoln, Missouri.
Lincoln from out here in Oakland.
Yeah, Lincoln, man. People who follow TSU football, they don't want to see those teams. Next week, they play Lindenwood. I don't even know where Lindenwood is.
In Missouri. Been there, coached against them. What you're talking about, schedule-wise, is legit. But the absence of Eddie's knowledge of the community, the black community, is one of his shortcomings. And from what I understand, he's not the outgoing, meet everybody and everybody's friend and best confidant. So his inability to connect with the alumni, the city, Tennessee State used to be a central point in the city for African Americans. Whatever went on in North Nashville, if it was not on the campus, Tennessee State had a hand in it, some shape, form, or fashion. They've moved the football games out of North Nashville, which means that the amount of money that Black folks make as a result of the university being in the community is wiped out. The economic,
That is such a great point. Go ahead.
The economic impact of moving downtown is bad for the community and bad for his attendance, because the kids they provide buses to take them, but who wants to get on a bus ride all the way downtown and have to catch the bus back to campus when they could play right on campus? But now they've condemned the stadium, I understand, because there's a gas line that runs under it. So now that's the coach's street committee explanation. But all of the ambiance of Tennessee State has been spread out all over the community, and all the money now, when kids leave the football game, they just go across the bridge to downtown and hang out in the honky tonks down there on Broad, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th Avenue, 6th Avenue. So they are so far dispersed. which means that nobody in North Nashville makes a quarter off of football games. The same business people that have been on Jefferson and Centennial for a millennium are now excluded from any of the income that was made right after football games. Used to be when Ricky was a little boy, you would walk away from Tennessee State's games and walk down the street to the Wigwam, to the several other dewdrop inns.
All kind of restaurants and
So, but all the black folks are out of the equation because of a deal that was made that Tennessee State would play downtown at the stadium. Plus, it's odd to me that Tennessee State, as the reason that the stadium was built, well, I won't say the reason, but the collateral that got the stadium built, you cannot let a bond issue in any state that I know of without having a state functioning entity that is in that building. Without Tennessee State, the building that is the stadium would have never been built because they couldn't let a bond issue. They didn't have anybody else that would play in there. Tennessee State moves down there and moves lock, stock, and barrel. And every home game, they've got to move everything that they would use at a home game all the way across town. And then they have to pay. They're the ones that got the stadium built. They built the stadium only because they could have a bond issue to fund it because Tennessee State would play in the stadium. But they have to pay for cleanup. They don't get anything out of the concessions. They don't get anything out of, no, I won't say that, out of parking. But anyway, the university is out of close to $1 million a year renting the stadium to play in.
Well, Dr. Head, you have worked in athletic offices. When you guys go in to negotiate contracts, I mean, aren't those some of the things you take into consideration? And number two, another point I want to make, guys, about them playing down there, even when they got 20,000, it looks like 2,000 in Titan Stadium.
But that's one of the fallacies of playing in a professional level facility. It's big enough to seat all these people that come to the Titans games, but it looks like everybody took a holiday when Tennessee State plays. Other than the band and the students, the old heads from back in the day dying off. They were the basic support of everything that Tennessee State did. They're getting older, not able to move around like they used to. They still carry a nice crowd with them wherever they go. But Tennessee State's business position in the OVC is a very weak one. When you consider that Tennessee State goes to Murray, Kentucky, and takes 6 busloads of folk, plus everybody that drives. And they go up and they flood the place and they set a new attendance record.
Yeah.
Murray State comes to Nashville. They bring the football team, the coaches, the trainers,
and the cheerleaders,
the support folks, and then all the parents who get free tickets. What did you get? You got a zero proposition because you go and play them and they make money. They come to play you and you lose money.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, when you were there, is that when they first went in to the OVC? And what was the student body thinking?
No. This is the way it was. So, like for me, because remember, they had that great team right before I got there, that undefeated team. So that team. So when I got there, it's mid '80s, '85. You had an interim president. It was Peters, and then you had the interim athletic director, which is Gail Sayers. So there's a lot of transition going on. We were still independent then, so we were the HBCU Notre Dame at the time, and we at that time we were the winningest team in 1AA history. I think it was us, then Yale. So I was looking up all those statistics. I said, wow, TSU got it going on. But then things started to change. Now, they had one good team while I was there, and that was the '86 team. Rod Reed, of course, was a big focal point linebacker. But they went 10-1-1, went to the playoffs, played against Nevada Reno, which later on ends up being our frat brother Kaepernick school. But, they played them. And that was like the best time that they had my 4 years there. And then, junior year, we entered the OVC. And that's when everything changed. That's when everybody was like, man, I don't like us playing, Murray State and Tennessee Martin. Well, we weren't even playing them then.
Eastern Illinois.
Eastern Illinois, right. So it's been a lot of turnover in the OVC, too, because Youngstown and all those guys earlier, right. But now it's like, and then we didn't have Belmont and Lipscomb. They were Division III. They weren't even in our stratosphere. They even come to the OVC looking better than us later on in life. So that's what was going on. But this is what was going on for us, though. We still would play our homecoming games at Vanderbilt because we needed the space, because we would get 30 to 40,000 people. And I remember that it'd be the one game over there, and then people say, oh man, we're not getting the concessions. So that's when the Titans, of course, the Oilers went to Memphis that 1 year. Then they said, we're going to be coming to Nashville next year, and we're going to have that kind of a combination, like Doc said, we're going to have that combination with the TSU that they'll play some of their games over there too. And so what happened, 98 was the last homecoming in the hole. And then the first homecoming at Adelphia, that's what it was called back then. Right. The first homecoming at Adelphia was 99. Because I made sure I went to both. I said I want to go to the last homecoming in the hole, and I would go to the first homecoming at the new stadium. So even then, it seemed like it was a nice crowd, but you still could feel the old, we're going to let you guys play over here, but you can't touch this over there. You can't touch this over there. You only got this parameter that you're going to be able to function. And and we still probably going to take all your concessions. So it was a good feeling to be in an NFL stadium to a certain extent, but it was still that feeling of we would rather have our own majestic stadium where all the proceeds stay with us in the community.
Well, hey, the state of Tennessee, I know Mike knows, and I'm sure you probably know too, Dr. Head. The state of Tennessee owes TSU $500 million.
No. They owe them $2.1 billion.
Yeah, 2.1.
Yeah, I guess the number's gone. And you just told me the stadium has been
condemned. That's the word on the street. That's the street committee's explanation. They did not have the Battle of the Bands in the stadium this year for homecoming. They didn't. Something else they didn't have because the stadium was not available. At this point, the smart thing to do would be to dig up the gas line and reroute it around the stadium, and be done with that. Otherwise, the situation gets bad. What you did, the point you just made, I want to call you brother's name, Rick, is the most cogent point of all. Tennessee State minus $2 billion. Every school in the Board of Regents, under the Board of Regents in the state of Tennessee, Martin, MTSU, all of them.
Austin P.
Memphis.
Yeah. Now, all of those schools of that size have tripled their fiscal facilities. Means that kids go to visit Austin P, they go to visit UT Martin. They
Oh,
go
MTSU.
MTSU is it grew like kudzu. So Tennessee State, while all this is going on, is struggling to maintain law and order with a shortfall of just a small amount of $2 billion. Now, the thing that you look at from that standpoint is that fiscally, the university was left stranded. They couldn't build anything. They couldn't do any deferred maintenance. All they were doing was tacking stuff up with Scotch tape, paper clips, and glue, while the rest of the schools were blossoming and blooming nonstop. So
That's right.
then you talk about salaries to people who were on those campuses that were much lower than those at other Board of Regents institutions. Then you talk about the effect of their retirement checks because they were paid far below what they were worth. $2 billion is just the tip of the iceberg when you start talking about other things that were neglected or disrupted because of the shortfall, $2 billion shortfall for the institution. What kind of situation could have been had they had half of that? Not the whole $2 billion, just half of just cool billion.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a cool $1 billion that could be added to the Tennessee State University campus? It is ridiculous that this idiot governor we have says that, well, that's in the past. Yeah, sure is. You need to pay for it.
Yeah.
He's got a $10 billion rainy day fund that he can spend at his leisure. And all these folks in the state of Tennessee can't get to a hospital for 60 miles because he won't utilize federal funds to keep local hospitals open. Now he's talking about not taking federal education funds. So I guess he's going to shut down the public school system, make everybody pay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know of another thing that me being out here, of course, because Vanderbilt, of course, is like kind of the equivalent of Stanford out here, and all the endowments they get, and then having alumni that are billionaires. Which we have one, right? But so you have Phil Knight,
and
of
they
course,
got 201.
Yeah.
Well, we got Phil Knight, who was I guess a student at Oregon and at Stanford. So he donates so much money to these schools. And look at Oregon's uniforms because of Phil Knight. And then, of course, all the endowments that he gives to Stanford, and of course, all the alumni that give endowments to Stanford, and people that aren't alumni. So when you look at
as you speak of Oregon,
right?
Oregon about 10, 12 years ago, maybe a little longer, went down to the University of Alabama, walked up to the man who was in charge of Alabama's recruiting program, signed a check, handed it to him, said, "This, whatever it takes to get you to come to the University of Oregon, just put it on that check and pack up and head that way."
Wow.
All right. They didn't say, do we have to, can we pay you a small bit as you start? They said, fill in the amount. If you want to know the difference, you hit on it. Money.
Yeah.
Mr. Knight is the controlling element at
at night. Yeah.
He's made shoes now which detect. I've forgotten, they showed them on the game they played with Colorado. The shoes were made to detect possible injuries, the moisture in the ground. It's just ridiculous.
The technology.
So now you come back to Tennessee State and you tell a kid, well, we get regular shoes. Well, okay, I'll see you. I'm going to Oregon.
Yeah.
And I ain't got no problem with that. The biggest issue in Tennessee State's recruiting is that they, number one, failed to recruit the state of Tennessee. Number two, their football facilities look just like they did 60 years ago. The practice field and the game and the stadium look just like they did the first time I ever laid eyes on them. No different. And the state has not kept those facilities in any level of consistency over that 60 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey guys, we cannot leave this show tonight without talking about Richard Roundtree, who passed away today at the age of 81. And just his whole legacy, I definitely wanted to get you guys what his legacy means to you and what do you think it means to our community. I'll start with you, Mike, and I'll let you close the show down, Dr. Head.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, for me, before we get to that, let me also, because I on Facebook, I also acknowledge Harry Porterfield. So for us journalists, that was a big guy. He was probably about 50 years working in Chicago at BBM, Channel 2, Chicago, and then WLS, which is the ABC affiliate in Chicago. So grew up watching Harry Porterfield. So he passed away the day before. So I want to acknowledge him, especially for my Chicago peeps out there. Harry Porterfield, rest in peace. But as for and me growing up in that Chicago area, but as for me, I was a lot younger than you guys were at the time when I'm just saying what perspective it was.
You're absolutely right on that.
You ain't lying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I was young and it probably shouldn't even been at these movies, but we had a theater. You know how it was. We had a theater. It was a black theater called the Rialto. Well, I guess it wasn't black at first, because I think when they show old footage of the 30s and 40s, people were going there and the demographics were different, Racine. But anyway,
like Chicago State.
Exactly.
It was not black then.
Right. But yeah, so they should show the black movies down there. So Shaft, Black Caesar, Coffee, all that. So Shaft, of course, and also Superfly. Even though some people thought that he was more negative, but still, I loved Ron O'Neal and Superfly. So, I'm young watching this, elementary age, and Shaft was just so cool. He was this, he's a detective, but he was his own man. Then of course Isaac Hayes was so quintessential in bringing his character to life with his theme, the theme music for that. And it was just a great combination. It was a pride-filled moment to finally see a brother up there on the screen and not being like, okay, boss, he was the man. So that right for me was like, oh man, I love this guy. And, just up until he was gone, whenever you see Richard Roundtree, it was always like, man, that's the epitome of cool. I love this guy. Yeah. And, and that's how it was. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we got our ex-football player for Kansas City that he was big in the movies back then. Fred Williamson.
The Hammer.
And then, of course, we got Pam Grier, which was probably everybody's sweetheart that they loved on the screen. Even me at that young age, I said, "Oh my God, I love her." And then you had Teresa Graves. So it was a lot of back there. But I think Richard Roundtree stood out above everybody. And I would probably say a close second would be Ron O'Neal. So that's it for me. I loved everything he did. You know, even he's played a lot of these characters in these sitcoms, father, a lot of scenarios and been in different movies. Even was in the newer Shaft with
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson playing, his son. So he's definitely been one of my favorite people to see. And then at the time when he came in, it's the early 70s, so we're just getting off the 60s. And that was just a prideful character for, I would have to say, all of Black America. And even maybe some non-Black America.
The thing that Roundtree represents is the progression of Black actors in film. You go back and look at Jim Brown, the already mentioned Fred Williamson, Sidney Poitier,
yes,
Cicely Tyson, all those people, even Bill Cosby,
yes,
were the champions of Black film long before, before Shaft. But Shaft brought to the screen, as Mike just said, that man Shaft is a bad shut your mouth. So suddenly, instead of being the instrument of enforcement for his leading actor Jim Brown and what's the lady's name? She said
Ann Greer.
No, the lady he kissed in
Raquel Welch.
Yeah, she said Jim attacked her like it was a real kiss, and she didn't know what to do. But anyway, you find all these people whose shoulders that he stood on, and when he got to the point to be able to stand up, he became the shoulders upon which other actors stood. Carl Weathers with the trilogy of Rocky. Pam Grier, she became the Brown Queen of movies and stayed that way for a long time. Melvin Van Peebles, and his son Mario. All of
James Earl Jones, don't forget him.
James Earl Jones was one of the predecessors,
right?
But when you talk about Blazing Saddles, when in the world would you have thought Blazing Saddles would have been something that was palatable to the entire country? It's a N-word. So you talk about Blazing Saddles and Cleavon Little, who was the star of the whole show. A lot of this was born on the shoulders of all these folks who went before my man,
Richard
and stood on his shoulders. Roundtree had some relatives here in Nashville. Rick, I'm told.
Oh, I did not know that.
So that was something that I picked up along the way. I think his brother lived here, somewhere near here. So he is not a stranger to the community. But the movies that are now made with people of color being people in power, independent people. My wife's favorite network, I call it the How to Kill Your Husband Network, better known as Lifetime. You see all of these Black folks in these very reasonable roles. They haven't found a way to allow us to be too powerful. They always the funniest thing about all of their movies is all the policemen are black.
Yeah.
Every time they have a policeman to come to the door and knock on the door, it's a black person.
Brother.
I say, what world is this in? But my wife loves it, and they have some excellent storylines, some extremely good storylines. And we are included there. Vivica Fox is doing gangbusters on this. She's got her own production company, I guess. But all of this is the result of people who started this thing, people who lived and worked and were rebuffed at every turn, who refused to take no for an answer, refused to allow themselves to be bashful or withdrawn, but rather placing themselves in sometimes harm's way to get it done. So,
I think Mike may have said it earlier too. He was so cool. He was cool, forceful, strong, smart, and we can't talk about the impact of that movie without talking about Isaac Hayes' score to that movie. Was just tremendous.
It's probably still the greatest selling album from a movie ever. Because every black person you knew had at least one copy. Some of them had two or three.
But we can't forget about Curtis Mayfield with Superfly.
Superfly, yes, sir.
He loves Superfly.
And it was at that time, man. But I was a kid. That time I'm 13, 14 years old, but I'm getting to understand, man, I'm seeing Ali tell these white people, hey, he ain't afraid of them. And Ali was not the first to do that. Dr. King did it all his life, but Dr. King did it in a more articulate way than Ali. Ali was in your face telling you, ain't no Viet Cong, call me nigger. And he was just a strong, powerful black man. And that's the way I saw Richard Roundtree in that role. And that was a low budget movie. And if you watch it now, you can see how that they barely had enough money to get that movie out. But I think that was one of the most important movies made, certainly in my generation.
Well, the blaxploitation movies became the vogue. We talk about Chef and Superfly and Watermelon Man,
Blackula,
Cotton Comes to Harlem.
Cotton Comes to Harlem. Ain't this the going back to Africa rally?
But all of these movies, good, bad, indifferent, most of them were very insulting to the intelligence of black people. But it put a lot of black folks to work. It put a lot of black folks up where they can be seen on the screen and can be recognized for their acting ability, their ability to maintain a dialogue. What were you thinking, Rick? Go ahead, Rick.
No, I was just going to say, there's not a black man 50 years old and probably even 40 years old and older that don't know about Rudy Ray Moore and some of his movies.
Oh, yeah, but could you stand and watch them?
They were terrible.
Yeah.
But I remember one scene, he's getting out of prison and all his women brings his clothes and one of his girls gave him some cotton underwear. He said, woman, I don't wear nothing but silk drawers.
Yeah, he was fun. He was hilarious. But you
And
know who else?
Dolomite.
Yeah. But you know who else we have to pay homage to on two fronts? Alex Haley, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Yeah. How many people, especially Black people, that's a must read right there. And then of course, how much information was espoused when he came out with Roots. People were saying, I did not know that. And how many actors were in that movie that we look at now and say, man, remember what's his name was in that movie? And what's his name was in that movie? And then people that we actually liked, like Rifleman and Lauren Green from Bonanza. Those guys we loved in Bonanza and Rifleman, but it's like once they got on Roots, we say, hey man, you playing that movie, you playing that role too well.
Even today, when you see LeVar Burton,
yes,
don't you think about that movie? Even today, when I see him,
absolutely,
I think about him in that movie.
That's the focal point of his career.
Yeah.
That he did not play another role that was that poignant. I mean, he was glued to that role from the time he played it till the day he leaves this earth. Yeah. You talked about the autobiography of Malcolm X. Think about Brother Lee and the movie Malcolm X.
Yep.
I mean, Spike Lee and the movie Malcolm X. It was a triumph, if nothing else, if you could just get a perspective on where they were and how far Malcolm traveled in his heart and mind from the depths of depravity to becoming one of the country's great leaders with the Nation of Islam. It's a real good look at how far you can go when you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, well said.
Even when folks hate you.
Yeah.
We could go another hour, but I'm on overtime on this station here, so I'm gonna have to get out of here. But Dr. Head, tell our viewers about your show and how they can find it.
You can find Let's Talk About It on NorthNashvilleTV.com. You can go to the website anytime and find a compilation of the shows that we've done. You can find activities in the city of Nashville that we covered. We filmed the step show at Tennessee State's homecoming. We filmed the parade at Tennessee State's homecoming. We've had a couple of other events, several other events that we covered. That there are pictures and video surrounding those. There was a Healthy Babies event at the YMCA 3 weeks ago, and it turned out to be really good for information-wise for our viewers, especially women of childbearing age. And we've gotten some feedback from that from several people. We have doctors from Meharry and Vanderbilt who come on fairly regularly to tell us about what's available in the city. Nashville is a city with a doctor who can take care of a hangnail or brain surgery. You can find him or her,
and that's
right here in town. That's on NorthNashvilleTV.com, the voice of the voiceless.
NorthNashvilleTV.com. Thank you, brother. I sure do appreciate you. Thanks, Mike. We'll be back next week. Until then, take care, everybody. Peace.